Hello, everyone, and welcome to From Physical Labs to Cloud Virtual Labs, a Journey. We have a groundbreaking case study from UCLA Extension to share with you today that I think will really interest you from not only a management and scalability perspective, but also from a budgetary and cost standpoint. Before we get started today, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. If you are on a computer today, I want to draw your attention to the GoToWebinar control panel. You'll see the questions box. This is where you're going to ask any questions that you have today. We'll have a full Q&A session after the presentation of the case study and the demo. If you have any problems today with the audio or the video, I recommend that you use a hardwired device for your internet connection instead of wireless and try logging out and back in again. If you're still experiencing any sound issues, you may want to use a dial-in connection. This webinar is being recorded. It will be available on demand within 24 hours, so please look for an email with the links to that recording. If you think it was worthwhile, we would invite you to share it with your colleagues. It will also be posted on our website for easy reference and viewing. So our agenda today, we're going to have a short intro, and then we are going to dive right into the UCLA Extension case study. We're going to do a demo of the Apporto software, and then again at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session to allow you to ask questions. So our guest today, Derek Agata, the lab manager at UCLA Extension. Derek has been working for UCLA for the past 17 years and has been managing the labs for 7. Anthony Oweda, CEO and founder of Apporto, is with us today. He's going to be joining us a little bit later with the actual demo of the Apporto software. And I'm Kim Butler from Apporto, your hostess for today's presentation. So a little quick intro about Apporto. Started in 2014 and based in Palo Alto, California. Apporto identified a need. Dropbox had made everyone more productive by being able to move files to the cloud, but there were key applications that remained tethered to PCs and to Macs. So to make users more productive, we wanted to move those applications to the cloud and deliver as any app to any device. So this is Derek's first webinar, and to spice things up a little and make this a little more entertaining and casual, we're going to be doing today's case study portion of the webinar as a fireside chat, so to speak. I'm going to be posing questions for Derek to answer. So as I go through this with Derek, if you think of any questions you'd like to ask, feel free to go ahead and put them in the questions window of your GoToWebinar control panel, and we're going to answer them in the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So, Derek, can you tell us a little bit about UCLA Extension?
Yes, thank you, Kim. UCLA Extension students are generally professionals who are interested in continuing their education for advancement or to change careers. Extension has 6 locations in Southern California. 4 are located in Westwood. 1 is in downtown LA, and our newest location is in Woodland Hills. Annually, we have about 50,000 students, and we are lucky to have over 70 countries represented in our student body. Extension offers 5,200 courses online, hybrid, and on-the-ground formats. In online, hybrid, and on-the-ground formats. Many of our students are working on one of over 150 certificates offered by UCLA Extension. So needless to say, we have a very diverse faculty and student body to support.
Well, and obviously by the pictures, I had no idea that Marilyn Monroe had actually been a student at UCLA. That's rather interesting.
Yeah, I didn't meet her, but she attended Extension according to Wikipedia.
So I understand you operate 6 labs. How many people do you have in your department, and what kind of an operations schedule do you keep?
So my team is comprised of 3 technicians and myself. We support 7 computer labs and a help desk 6 days a week from 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Friday and Saturday. And we also cover Sundays on an as-needed basis. We support an average of 3,000 lab meetings per year.
That's a really extensive schedule that you guys keep.
Yes, with 4 people. It's
That's a
challenging.
lot of time to cover.
Mhm.
So explain to me, how did you operate before you started using Apporto?
So we ran traditional labs. We used removable hard drives to make administration easier and to present custom configurations to our courses. We utilized update servers to keep our software current, and we used Ghost and Clonezilla to replicate our drives. And of course, we use deep freeze to prevent students from making modifications.
And what were the pros and the cons of your original lab setup?
Well, our configuration has worked very well for some time now and continues to work well. Our labs were designed to maximize standardization and avoid single points of failure. So our combination of a single hardware platform and removable drives allows us a great deal of flexibility at a fairly low cost. There are, however, some limitations to our traditional lab configuration. Our students had to be physically on site to access our resources. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with LA traffic, but trying to be on premises and on time for a course can be a bit challenging. Courses could only be scheduled in the rooms where the applications were installed. And the scheduling of open lab time was possible, but difficult to schedule since we had no one lab with all of the applications installed in it.
So that sounds like it could have really created quite a backlog for students trying to get in and actually use the labs at particular times of the day or the week.
Yes, it's challenging.
And the system that you had before, was it scalable and could it grow with what UCLA Extension has plans to do in the next few years?
Yeah, well, the traditional labs were, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Was your previous system scalable?
Not really. As we started supporting more and more, a more diverse set of personal devices, the support was becoming increasingly time-consuming. We're helping students install all sorts of software and all sorts of devices that were in varying states. For instance, we would help students install Windows-only applications on their Macs, but then we would need to help them configure Boot Camp or install Parallels and a version of Windows prior to installing the required applications. The model of bring your own device and we will provide you with installation files was obviously not scalable. It was clear that providing support for student devices was quickly becoming out of hand. And lastly, a growing diversity of students who owned older PCs and newer non-PC devices, such as Chromebooks and iPads, were also becoming a challenge.
So EDUCAUSE identified that one of the top 10 issues for college campuses was implementing enterprise IT applications, architectures, and sourcing strategies to achieve agility, scalability, and cost effectiveness. What were some of the deciding factors for UCLA Extension to make a change in how they were running their labs?
So UCLA has been Extension has been growing. We've been adding new locations. We had Woodland Hills this past year and Gailey the year before that. We're also expecting increased enrollments. Our traditional labs, I'm sorry. So, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, the new dean clearly has a mission and especially interest in online learning. At least that's what I read.
Yeah, so he's well known and at the forefront of online learning. Sorry.
That's great. That's great.
So what solutions did you consider in your search?
So we looked at Citrix and VMware. Both have beautiful products that are very expensive, and both had ideas about how we could save costs by replacing our PCs with thin clients. I think for many organizations, thin clients are practical, though I feel that in our environment, there are some trade-offs that I'm not convinced would provide the best learning experiences for our students. Some of the courses that would be impacted by this change would be our operating system courses and our networking courses. We were concerned about having a single point of failure in our network, and if we moved to thin clients, if the network were to go down, then all of our classes would be canceled. We also had some concerns about the useful life of the expensive hardware and wanted to avoid the headaches of hosting our own mission critical servers and supporting them 24/7.
And I would have to think that the licenses themselves were very hard to manage and keep track of.
Yes, that's correct.
So how does the lab usage change over the course of the academic year?
Well, as seen in the graph, one of the problems that we would have hosting our own VDI hardware is the nature of our usage. We needed to engineer a hardware solution to accommodate peak usage, which occurs primarily at the beginning and end of every quarter. For the rest of the quarter, much of the capacity of our hardware would be underutilized.
So how is this different from adopting a cloud solution?
Well, when we adopted a cloud solution, our utilization problem was transferred to our provider. It was no longer our problem.
Which must make your life a lot easier.
Yes, it sure does.
Thank you, Derek.
No, thank you, Anthony.
So what other solutions did you consider in your search?
So other than VMware and Citrix, which we found to be expensive, we took a look at Azure. But Azure's billing was by the minute, and so it was hard to forecast the cost of the courses. So we decided to try Amazon Workspaces, which was fixed and per named user.
So what were the pros and the cons of working with Amazon Workspaces?
So Amazon Workspaces worked fairly well, but there were some issues. Our students needed to install a client. In order for the client to connect to Amazon, certain network ports were needed to make the connection. And many networks would not allow these ports for security reasons. Some of our licensing would not work on their standard workspace. And some of our software would not install on their workspaces because their Amazon's workspaces are actually a server operating system with a workstation shell over it. And then probably one of the bigger downsides is Amazon was a bit expensive when scaled out to large numbers of students. When scaled to maybe 500 users and above, it's actually more expensive than an on-prem solution from Citrix or VMware.
And I would have to think that you ran into a lot of issues with students needing to install a client or the technical support that you needed to provide to those students when they had a problem.
Yes, that's correct. Actually, recently, one of our students was going to drop his course because he had an old Mac that worked fine, but he could not update his OS 10. Unfortunately, the OS 10 version of the Workspaces client was not compatible with his operating system. So I ended up installing Parallels and Windows and then the Windows Workspaces client so that he could continue the course. He was extremely happy, and I was happy that it was an isolated case.
But I would have to think, I mean, obviously that was a tremendous amount of time for you to spend with one student when you have potentially tens of thousands of them there that could run into a problem and need help from your tech support people.
Yeah, that's correct. We would not be able to do this for everyone.
So explain to me what led you to Apporto, and what was the deciding factor in with you going with this particular solution?
Yes, this is a good question. My wise and amazing director, Leslie Hogan, asked me to take a look at the solution that UC Merced was using for application delivery. UC Merced is UC's newest campus and has a reputation for being technically advanced. I ended up attending a webinar that was similar to this one, and after the webinar, I contacted Apporto to learn more about their product. A couple of weeks later, we were delivering our first course via Apporto, and since adopting Apporto, we have seen a dramatic drop in help desk tickets.
And what particular advantages made it a better choice than Amazon Workspace?
So Apporto is about a third less expensive per user than Amazon.
You mean 2/3 less expensive? 1/3 the cost and 2/3 less.
Yeah, sorry. And let's see, our students no longer need to install a client since Apporto runs in a browser. Our students are able to transfer data to and from their virtual environments in Apporto without the need to install or configure a third-party service such as OneDrive or Dropbox. And on our side, the admin interface for Apporto is easier to use than Amazon's.
So you ended up with a hybrid approach. Can you tell me how that works?
Yes, so we're currently running our traditional labs with and Apporto, I'm sorry. This is highly flexible and cost effective. Since there are some courses which we do not need to provide remote desktop capabilities or remote app capabilities. So we could continue running those courses in the labs. For the courses we are supporting using Apporto, we're realizing many benefits. Students are amazed that they can now work on their applications without the need to install software. And by the way, they're up and running within a few minutes of receiving their welcome email. Our instructors are happy because through Apporto, we can provide their students with consistent pre-configured learning environments, and so they spend less time supporting their students. Our finance department's happy because the cost per student's low, and we're supporting this functionality without additional staff. Sorry, and I'm happy because I do not have the headaches caused by the stress of supporting an on-prem mission-critical hardware solution that I would need to support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And how long did it take you to implement the Apporto system?
Yeah, so I'd say we're up and running within a couple of weeks.
Really, seriously? That you were able to replace everything you were doing in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, well, we ran a pilot. It was one course initially, and so we're able to get it up very quickly. We showed the instructor tested it out for a day. He was happy, and so we ran with it.
That's fabulous. Well, Derek, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule today to share with us how UCLA Extension has used Apporto to help you scale your operation and provide not only your students, but your employees with a solution that makes software delivery smarter, faster, cheaper, and more collaborative. So let me now hand it over to Anthony and let him tell you and show you how Apporto helped UCLA solve their technology issues and implement this solution so quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Thanks, Derek, for a great presentation. So our motto here at Apporto is that our best ideas come from our customers. sometimes from our students, as I'm going to mention to you in a minute. But since we've had UCLA as a customer, they've obviously asked for a number of functionality, as did our other customers. But one of the things that I'm going to show you today is how you're able to upload and download files from the virtual desktop, from the virtual app to your physical desktop. Another thing that resonated very, very strongly with UCLA is remote screen control. When I talk to my son, who goes to a UC here in Santa Cruz, and I asked him, why do you go to computer labs? And he said, well, first reason is I go there to be able to access to apps that otherwise I don't have access to. But number two, I go there to collaborate with my colleagues, to seek mentoring, perhaps from a teaching assistant. So we spent a lot of time thinking, how can we enable this collaboration? How can we enable this mentoring in a virtual lab environment? And I'm really pleased to show you that today, this is the first time we're going to show this brand new functionality. And a little bit further out, this is based on a requirement from our friends at UCLA, how to keep a schedule of lab hours. So for instance, if you wanted to give priority to students in a certain class over other students, you could do that, minimize the amount of collision, and you can tell the students, well, enter your name, your email address, and we'll notify you when a particular app, when a particular license becomes available. And I think without much more overdue, if you could hand me the controls back, Kim, I'm going to start with demoing the great new functionality that we have in our App Store. Actually, I think I can grab control myself right here. Or did you make? Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. Can you folks see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so now I'm going to log in first as a student to show you the student experience. I'm logging in as Jane Student. And as Jane Student, I've been provisioned with a certain number of apps. Obviously, a very hardworking student here. I'm taking courses in graphic design, in statistics, in project management, in engineering even. But today I've decided to continue to work, I should say, on my graphic design. So all I have to do is to hit launch. And now I'm able to connect to an app that traditionally would have something, you would require something like a Mac or a Windows to run on. But through the power of HTML, I'm able to start using it right away. And all I had to have is a browser. So even though I have a Windows 10 computer here, it could have been a Chromebook, it could have been an iPad, it could have been a Mac, it could have been just about any device. It could have been an iPhone, if you really wanted to do that, which would be very interesting. But now I'm able to start using Adobe Illustrator and, so if I wanted to start a new file, I just click Start New, and I don't have any new files here, and I can start using it. Okay, I don't have any new, so go ahead. Okay. All right, so I want to start design here. And what I really wanted to show you here is the ability to draw. And as you can see right here, the fidelity is very, very high. And this is very, very important because, again, if the fidelity is not good enough, the end user will get frustrated and will stop using our tool. So now I can go ahead and save it. What is really important is that I can save it on my desktop on the server. So when I go home, I can continue to use it, again, without skipping any beats. So I can rename it to Doodle and save it on my browser, on the desktop server. Or what I also can do, which is really important, I can download it to my computer. So I can go and save it on my desktop in the Downloads folder. And now when I hit the download files, as you can see here, it's downloaded to my personal computer. And now I can go to my downloads folder on my computer and start using that file. Similarly, I can upload files from my desktop all the way to the computer. There's a number of ways to do that. But the functionality that we're most excited about to share with you today is the ability to remote control the screen. So if I share this URL with a colleague of mine, that user will be able to see what I'm working on. If, on the other hand, if I share this URL, and let's go ahead and now open Edge. And paste that URL in there. And as you can see now, we have a different user who is able to see, and for that matter, even work collaboratively on that project. So now if I go back to my original browser, as you can see, those two are working together. And with that, we've been able to enable this collaboration in the cloud, this collaboration that takes place naturally, obviously, in a physical lab. So another thing that our friends at UCLA asked for is the ability to deliver a full desktop to students. So in the case of UCLA, they have a course that teaches SQL programming, and in a SQL programming course, obviously you have to teach SQL for Microsoft SQL Server, for Oracle, you want to integrate it with Visual Studio. So again, in this particular case, what is different is we're delivering a full desktop to the end users versus just delivering an app. And in this full desktop, everything is pre-integrated. You know, Visual Studio is working with SQL Server, is pre-integrated with SQL Server, with Oracle, and they can go about their task again without skipping a beat. And of course, they have all the functionality that I showed you earlier, the ability to upload files, download files, and share their screen and remote control of the screen. And with that, I'm going to move over now to show you how an admin would manage all of this great functionality that we're delivering to the users. So now I'm going to log in as an admin. And as an admin, obviously, making sure that the right users, the right group of users have access to the right apps or to the right desktops is very, very important. So I have a whole host of functionality here that enables me to do that. I'm not going to cover all of them today because obviously we want to keep some time for the Q&A session. So I'm going to cover the functionality that we believe is, most relevant for most of our customers. One very important piece of functionality is what we call the dashboard. And in the dashboard, this essentially is a hierarchical representation of your organization. And for many of our customers, this is simply a reflection of what is in Active Directory. For other customers, they may want to keep it at very high level and decide to grant apps or access to apps based on very high levels, students, staff, and faculty. Others may have it more granular. So for instance, if I select arts, I can deploy apps specifically to the students in the arts department, but I also have a bunch of apps that are inherited from a parent group. So for instance, if I select students, and let's say I wanted to publish an app called Notepad++ to students, all I have to do is publish it. And now, obviously, this app is published to the group students, but it's also published to the subgroup called arts and the subgroup called scientists. So now, if I go and hover on top of Notepad++, as you can see, the publishing action here is inherited from the parent group, which is called students. Creation of apps, we make it very, very simple. You can install your own apps on one of our servers and create an image based on that. Or you can come to our website. We have a form that enables you to request an app to be created, to be deployed to your app store. And typically, when it comes to your app store, it'll be in a dev status. And you can move it to production and publish it to the right groups in your organization. Users, typically nothing very exciting happens here. All of these users are created automatically through the integration with our customers' Active Directory or Shibboleth. So most of our customers do not use the screen. We only have one customer that happens to use the import capability to import users from a spreadsheet. Groups, again, nothing very exciting happens here. Those are typically created through the integration with Active Directory, Shibboleth, or CAS. We've added a new functionality that some of our customers are really excited about. In some environments, they may want to enable faculty to manage access to apps, but they don't want to give them full control over all the apps or over the entire AD hierarchy. So in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and create a sub-admin capability called Arts Department Sub-Admin that I'm going to grant to the arts section of the hierarchy. And I'm going to give this role access to only the arts-related apps. So now I've created this role, and I can go to a specific faculty, to a specific user, and grant this role to that user. And now when this person logs in, he or she would be able to manage apps, specifically those three apps, those arts apps, to the arts department. Okay, so we granted them some facility to do that without having the ability to do everything they want to do as an admin. Another capability that some of our customers really like is faculty do not like it when things change without their knowledge. So for instance, if I have a course and I'm teaching SPSS and my course material refers to SPSS 23 and that changes, IT decides to upgrade to SPSS 24, well, that may create a problem for my course material. So here IT can communicate with their faculty, with their students by posting notifications. And those will appear in the App Store when the end user, when the faculty member logs in to the App Store. Another capability that we have is the ability to keep track of app usage and put a cap on the number of users that could access this app. So for instance, if I wanted to limit the number of UCLA Lab Desktop to say 50 concurrent user, I just would have to enter the number 50 there, hit update, and now no more than 50 users could be accessing the UCLA Lab Desktop. Another functionality that we've added also recently is the ability to view metrics. We think metrics are very, very important. One very important metric that we like to keep an eye on is the session latency. And the session latency really is how long it's taking for the end user to get a response from the server. And if you see a graph like this, there's no problem because even though there are a few peaks here and there, it's going back to its average, 60 milliseconds is what we're looking at here. If, on the other hand, you see a graph where it keeps growing up and up, that means that the latency is getting worse, probably because you're adding more users or maybe because you're adding more apps, and something needs to be done about it. So again, metrics enable you to get deep visibility into what's going on. and enables you to take measures to mitigate those problems. You can also keep track of the number of sessions on a specific server. So as you can see here, we have a maximum of 4 users on the server. You can also see how many how many users have used a particular app. So as you can see here, Adobe Photoshop has had, hits of about 1 user every once in a while. So that's very heavy. And you can go back in time. So, you can go back in time 2 days, 30 days, and 365 days. And finally, a very important piece of functionality for our customer is the ability to customize the App Store. So obviously, if you were to use the App Store, you wouldn't want to be looking at the UCLA logo. You obviously can change that branding. You can add your CSS sheet, so you customize it even further. You can customize the welcome email. This is a capability, as Derek mentioned, to send end users a welcome email, and they can use this information to log into the App Store. And for some end users who may have lost their password, you can resend them the welcome email so they recover their password. And again, all of this is very customizable. The login page is very customizable. And obviously, you can integrate, and I'm not going to go through that because it's very technically involved. Integrate with your AD, integrate with your Shibboleth, and we make provisions for you to be able to do that, or for us to do that on your behalf. And I think at this point in time, we're running right on time, Kim, to leave another 10 minutes for Q&A. So I'm going to keep presenting in case somebody has specific questions about the App Store, so I can show them while answering their question. But Kim, if you wanted to get started with the questions and obviously send them either my way or Derek's way, we can go ahead with that.
Absolutely. So I think the first question is to you, Anthony, and that is, what is the pricing structure for Apporto?
Okay. So we price our service, our cloud service, based on the type of application that you have. For small type applications like maybe Microsoft Office and the like, it's $35 per concurrent user per month. Okay? Again, per concurrent user per month. And our friend Derek mentioned, Amazon prices it $25 to $35 per named user per month. And I'm sure, as you folks know all too well, in a college environment, there's a huge difference between named users and concurrent users. So again, in our case, it's $35 for small apps like Office, $45 per concurrent user per month for medium-sized apps like SPSS, and for high-end apps, maybe like AutoCAD or Adobe, it's $55 per user, per concurrent user per month.
Our next question, and this may be to both of you. How are you licensing the OS desktop with Microsoft for student home use? And do you have a campus agreement or other VDI license agreement at UCLA? Which one of you would like to start with that one?
Sorry, we have a MECA agreement through campus, but the desktops are handled through Apporto.
Yeah, I honestly, I must say, I did not understand the question. Could you repeat it?
Sure. How are you licensing the OS desktop Windows with Microsoft for student home use?
Oh, honestly, that falls outside of what we do. We do not, provide a desktop license, a Windows desktop license for students for use. I think this is in a BYO environment, again, without putting an answer in Derek's mouth. I think students come with their own, computer, whether it's a PC or a Mac or a Chromebook, and really the task is how to deliver the apps that we just showed you to those students, and that part we take care of. But obviously, they come with their own version of Windows, their own, version of, Mac OS X or Chromebook. Is that about right, Derek?
Yeah, that's correct.
So our next question, how locked down can the VDI be? For example, can you disable the printing or the file sharing?
I think that's a question to you, Derek.
I'm not sure. We don't really use those features. We don't lock any of that down on our side. Yeah, primarily our students just save files to their remote desktop or their app.
So for other customers, to answer that question more generically, there's two ways where students or users can print. They can print a PDF file, which is then transferred to their downloads folder and then print. Or we can mount a driver onto the server so they can print directly from the server onto a local printer. But those are the mechanisms for printing.
Thank you, Anthony. So our next question is back to you. So have you had to do anything special for licensing the apps? And are the companies generally amenable to this?
That's a very good and fair question. It really depends on the vendor. So a vendor like IBM and SPSS, if you try to virtualize the apps, they will ask you for a virtualization fee. For apps like Stata, maybe, as long as you're not exceeding the number of users you've licensed for, they seem to be very, very flexible. So it's really vendor specific. Some vendors don't care as long as you are within the number of users that you've licensed for. A user is a user is a user. Others, well, if you're trying to deliver virtualized software, they may want to charge you a fee for that.
Anthony, we have another licensing question. Adobe licensing has become an issue. How do you manage this? Is it done on a concurrent usage basis? This particular user currently has to license per computer. How does this work in the cloud?
I must say I have read about the new Adobe licensing. Probably what you guys have read as well, either on magazines or on threads like the Educast threads. But I'm not familiar with the new licensing, and I probably would be, would give the wrong answer if I was to answer this question. So I'm afraid, and I think, for those people who are particularly interested in that topic, I know that the licensing group, the Educast licensing group, has arranged for a meeting with Jonathan Zimmer, who's the head of the Adobe to the education division, who's going to answer all those questions around licensing. So I encourage you to attend that session. But I don't think I'm in a good position to answer that question.
Anthony, how do apps work that have a SQL backend, for example, AMS system?
Yeah, so it's not very different from what we're delivering to our friends here at UCLA. When we install the apps on the server, we integrate them with a SQL backend, which could be, again, Oracle. And it could be that the SQL backend could be running on the same server on a different server. As long as we present the UI to the end user, then they're all set. So in the case of UCLA, again, they wanted a desktop that integrated 3 elements: Visual Studio, SQL Server, and Oracle, so students could learn SQL programming. So the way we set it up, and we could have set it up differently. We have the SQL database is running on one server, and we have the UI, which is SQL Plus, SQL Server, and Visual Studio running on another server, which we're delivering as a desktop, virtual desktop to end users. So what goes on behind the scenes, can be configured in a number of different ways. As long as the end users have access to the UI in a browser, that should work.
So I'm being asked to re-ask one of my questions and direct it to Derek this time. So Derek, the question to you, how are you licensing the OS desktop Windows with Microsoft for student home use? And in addition, Jason's asking, MS charges a virtual access license. So he wanted information about that.
Yeah, so for like this past week, I was in a conversation with our Mecca rep on campus, and we were talking about how we go about making these products available. We're still discussing our options, and so we're still working on that.
Okay, thank you. Is there a way to expire or uninstall apps on student home computers if they originally chose to install it locally once the class is over?
Yes, very, very much so. So I didn't cover this topic in this particular demo presentation, but for those of you who've seen prior demos of Apporto, not only we deliver apps in a browser virtually, we deliver apps natively. And when an app is delivered natively, at any point in time, an admin can recover this app, or alternatively, an admin can, obviously they typically don't do that manually, but let's say, they wanted to do it manually, they could select a user and deprovision the selected user. What this means is that we have a little agent that lives on an end user's computer anytime they try to install an app natively on there. So when that agent will wake up and talk to the server, that agent will realize that this end user has been deprovisioned, and therefore all the apps that he or she has installed from the App Store will be uninstalled and returned to the pool. So if you're particularly interested in this use case, we'd be happy to demo it to you. We felt it would be a bit too much to cover that topic in this presentation.
Sorry, I could give a little bit more info about the question that I was asked earlier. So our rep had told us that we need to purchase license for every endpoint. So when we're providing operating system, we just need to have one license per endpoint that we're going to be presenting to.
And Jason, if that didn't answer your question, please ask again, or please give me a follow-up, and I'm happy to ask it again. That is the last of our questions, unless somebody comes up with one real quick. I just put into the chat window and sent out to everybody, Anthony and my email address. If you have any questions after the presentation, whether it be in a few hours or later in the week or next week, please feel free to email us. We'd be more than happy to answer your questions. And if you need a private demo, I'm sure that that's something that Anthony can arrange for you. And yes, Nicole, we will have a recording of the webinar. It will be available in 24 hours. You'll get an email about it, and it will also be posted on our website, so you can share it with colleagues if they didn't have a chance to attend as well. Anthony, I'll let you take us out.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. Derek, I very much appreciate you taking the time to sharing everything you've learned in the last year or two. And for a great first presentation, so we really, really appreciate that. Kim, thanks for putting this together. And the audience, we thank you for your time. We hope it was both valuable and enjoyable. and we hope to hear from you on a subsequent webinar. Thanks again.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Anthony.